How do you get calcium? You get calcium by eating it. You cannot make calcium. The only way to get it is to eat calcium. In your body, calcium is located in your blood, and I've got this red cup here with this blood vessel, calcium in the blood, and calcium is located in your bones. And I made a bone right here out of a piece of wire. These beads represent calcium. Calcium is also found in your urine. So this yellow cup over here is your urine, and see there's some calcium, some beads in your urine. And that urine is made in the kidneys. Osteoblasts are cells that build bone matrix, and osteoclasts destroy the bone matrix. They break it down. So osteoblasts build bone matrix, and osteoclasts crash it down. They cause it to be broken. So what do osteoblasts do? They build bones. Where do osteoblasts get the calcium to build bones? They get it from the blood. So right now I have 10 calciums in my blood. If an osteoblast is going to build bone, it takes calcium from the blood and it puts it in the bones. Osteoblasts take calcium from the blood and they put it into the bones. Osteoclasts break down bone, they crash it down, they take calcium out of the bones and they put it back into the blood. So osteoblasts, calcium from blood to bone, osteoclast, calcium from bone to blood. So if osteoblast activity increases, if the osteoblasts start building more bone, calcium from the blood to the bone, like this, what happens to the calcium level in the blood? Well, we've taken calcium out of the blood, so the blood calcium level will go down. If osteoblasts become more active, what will happen to the bone density? We've put more calcium into the bones, they've become denser, so we've increased bone density. Now let's see what happens when osteoclasts increase their activity. The osteoclasts break down bone, so they take calcium from the bone and they put it into the blood, like this. What has happened to blood calcium level? When osteoclasts increase their activity, the calcium goes from the bone to the blood. Blood calcium level increase, but wait, we've taken calcium out of the bone, so bone density decreases. That's the relationship between the bone and the blood. Osteoblasts, calcium from the blood to the bone. Osteoclasts, calcium from the bone to the blood. Now let's look about what goes on in the kidney. When blood is filtered in the kidney, it kind of runs through a sieve, kind of like a coffee filter. The calcium goes from the blood into what we call the filtrate. The filtrate passes through the kidney. It undergoes a number of changes that you'll cover in second semester that convert that filtrate to urine. For the purposes of right now, the difference between filtrate and urine is not particularly important. Filtrate is what you start with, urine is what you end up with. So what happens? You take calcium from the blood and you put it into the filtrate in this yellow cup. Now that calcium there can end up in the urine and it can leave your body, or it can go back into the urine. So what happens in filtration? In filtration, calcium is removed from the blood in the kidney and it goes into that filtrate. So in filtration, calcium from the blood into the filtrate. In reabsorption, calcium moves from the filtrate back into the blood. So if we increase reabsorption, we move more calcium from the filtrate back to the blood. An increase in reabsorption, moving from the urine to the blood, will increase blood calcium levels because we're moving from here to here, and it will decrease the amount of calcium in the urine. What if we decrease reabsorption? What if we move less calcium from here to here? More calcium goes out in the urine and less calcium stays in the blood. So more reabsorption, less calcium in the urine, more in the blood, less reabsorption, more calcium in the urine, less in the blood. Now let's look at the small intestine. We've got a small intestine right here, and let's put a couple of beads in there. So you ate some food with calcium in it. Maybe you ate some yogurt for lunch today like I did. So now you've got some calcium in your small intestine. When you absorb calcium from your small intestine, it goes from your small intestine and it goes into your blood. So calcium in the small intestine is absorbed into the blood. Vitamin D is required for this, so you cannot do this without vitamin D. So keep that in mind. Vitamin D is required. A hormone that causes an increase in calcium absorption, causes more calcium to go from the small intestine to the blood, will increase the amount of calcium in the blood. So more absorption from the small intestine, more moves into the blood, more calcium in the blood. Less absorption from the small intestine, more stays in the small intestine, less goes into the blood. Now let's look at how calcium is regulated by hormones. Parathyroid hormone is secreted by the parathyroid gland. The parathyroid gland is on the back of your thyroid gland, which is located in your neck, on the front of your neck. When blood calcium levels are low, the parathyroid gland produces more parathyroid hormone. What effect does parathyroid hormone have? Now think about it. Parathyroid hormone is produced when blood calcium levels are low. So what do you want to do? You want to raise blood calcium levels. How are you going to do that? Well, we've got three effectors right here. We've got the bone, we've got the small intestine, and we've got the kidney. How can each of them act to increase blood calcium? Well, number one, parathyroid hormone causes an increase in calcium absorption from the small intestine into the blood. Parathyroid hormone causes calcium to go from the small intestine to the blood. Parathyroid hormone causes decreased osteoblast activity and, notably, increased osteoclast activity. Osteoclasts break down bone, increase osteoclast activity, you move calcium from the bones to the blood. And we've got a third way of doing this. Parathyroid hormone also causes calcium to go from the filtrate back into the blood. So it causes the movement of calcium from the filtrate, right here, back into the blood. And finally, parathyroid hormone helps increase that final step of vitamin D synthesis that happens in the kidney, and so you have more vitamin D. So 3 effects of parathyroid hormone: increased absorption from the small intestine, increased activity of osteoclasts in the bone, increased reabsorption of calcium in the kidney. I'm going to let you model on your own what happens with decreased calcium reabsorption, with increased calcium, blood calcium levels, and then how does that affect those 3 different effector organs.